Hi everybody, welcome to the show. Hello everyone, welcome back to our channel. This is Raising A to Z, a informational and inspirational YouTube channel all about homeschooling. My name is Amanda, a former teacher turned homeschool mom. Today I am answering a question we get asked all the time. It is, how did two teachers end up homeschooling their kids? What led us down that path? But before I get to that, make sure that you are subscribed to our channel and make sure that you click the bell to get notifications so you can see when we put out new videos, which is pretty much every Monday. So for those of you who don't know, I am a certified teacher in the province of Ontario. I am certified for primary, so I can teach kindergarten all the way up through grade 6. And my husband, Stefan, he is also a certified teacher. He actually works in a high school where he is certified to teach grades 7 through 12. So people think it's a little strange that two teachers who were educated to educate others, who were taught and raised up to support public education, and who actually do still work in public education in some forms. How did we end up homeschooling our kids? What led us to deciding that keeping our kids home and out of the public or private school system was the best choice for our family? First things that kind of got us onto the idea that maybe we weren't going to send our kids to public school was actually the introduction of play-based kindergarten. So when I was new in teachers college, when I did my teachers college, play-based kindergarten was like the newest thing. It was brand new. It was just coming out. That's what I was learning. Like, it was not even fully implemented. When I was doing my practicums and my teaching placements, I was actually like working with teachers who were practicing to implement it the following year. So it was like a 2-year rollout, and we were like right on the cusp of this becoming a big thing in all schools across Ontario. So play-based kindergarten was new, and it was a really interesting experience for me as a teacher in teachers college because I loved the theory behind play-based learning. I loved the theory behind inquiry-based learning, which was another name that they kind of gave similarly to the new kindergarten program. And basically it was the idea that kids can learn through play, and if we are following kids' passions and what they're interested in, that can push them to learn everything and anything they want to learn. Basically it was unschooling, but in a public school setting. That was kind of the idea. And ironically, my teacher college professor who I had at the time, he actually unschools his kids. His kids are not in the public school system either. And so he was an unschooler at home, and he was bringing the model of unschooling into the classroom essentially, and had been for many years. But now that it was becoming like pretty mainstream, that's kind of what play-based learning and inquiry-based learning was becoming. And so he was a big proponent that this works and this would be a great idea. And in my head, I just couldn't wrap my head around. I love the idea of it. Like I said, I love the idea of, kids following their passions, kids using what they are interested in as a way to push their learning, to help them really explore different avenues by following things that they love. I thought it was a great idea. I also understood how benefit of play was like so ingrained that kids who are learning something through play learn it like 10 times faster than they would if it was just kind of being rotely taught to them. So I understood all of it in theory. I just couldn't wrap my head around how that would work in a classroom setting. Like that as a teacher, as a student teacher, I just could not wrap my head around how this would work in a classroom setting. And I thought maybe I just haven't seen it. And then I went and I taught it. And it was chaos, in my opinion. I was working with a teacher who had never done it before, and so she was basically using me as her guinea pig. And the fact that I had this knowledge and that she was actually working on a learning community that was working with the same professor. Anyway, she was gonna be implementing it the following September. And so I was actually her guinea pig. She kind of treated me as an ECE in her classroom to help her figure out how to do this whole play-based learning, inquiry-based learning with her students. And I did it for 6 weeks. And at the end of that 6 weeks, I can tell you, I said, this doesn't work in a classroom setting. I don't think this is gonna work in a traditional classroom setting. And during that 6 weeks, we also went on a placement to another school that was fully implemented in the inquiry-based learning and play-based learning program. And again, I just got this feeling that this does not work in a public school setting. And it's not that the idea isn't good. It's just when you have 30 something kids in a room, and you're trying to give them each the time and attention to learn what they want to learn and follow what they want to learn, but also still trying to get them to hit all their check marks on what the overall curriculum is telling them they need to hit by a certain time of the year. It's too many things. You have the idea of kids are going to learn when they're ready and what they're interested in, but then you also have all the check boxes they have to click and check as they go through, and then you also have the constraints of there's so many of them, there's not enough teachers, they don't always have the resources they're looking for. It was just absolute chaos. The class I worked in had 24 kids. The class that I witnessed, we did a field trip to, had 34 kids. 34 4 and 5 year olds, and one teacher and one EA. And it was absolute chaos. And so it left me with this feeling that as a parent and as a teacher, I just could not support play-based learning in a play-based kindergarten, because it just did not make sense to me that play-based in the public school system was just not going to work. That was my experience. That's how I saw it. And I figured I might as well do it at home. So that was like the first thing, was that we weren't even engaged yet. And I had this feeling that this play-based kindergarten was just chaos in a real base. And I have seen teachers who do it really, really well. Oftentimes they're in very, very small classrooms. They have a lot of support. So some teachers can make it happen and they can do it well. I just don't think it works well as a broad sweep, everybody doing it. So after teachers college, I went on to work at a private school, and I did that for a few years. And then at one point there was no teaching contract for me there anymore. And so I was at home and we decided to start our family. And once we were looking into starting a family, we realized that really the best idea for us financially was that I stay home for a little while. Had I been getting into like supply work, my supply work wouldn't have even covered daycare or childcare costs for us. So we made the decision that I would stay home. And I said, well, if I'm staying home, it kind of became a very easy transition, that if I'm staying home, I might as well homeschool my kindergartner. Like, I'm certified to teach kindergarten. I could stay home and homeschool my own kindergartner. And so that was the first kind of inkling that like this was what we could do. And that was our first feeling, was that we were going to just homeschool kindergarten. That was our first plan. But then we were also hearing a lot of rumblings, because Stefan still teaches in the public high school, and you know, his mom was teaching at in the public elementary school system at the time. And so there was a lot of rumblings that this play-based, inquiry-based learning model was actually going to be expanded into grades 1, 2, and 3. That never actually ended up happening, but it started us thinking that if we didn't want this in kindergarten, we really don't want it to be something that they do for multiple years. And so that kind of got us onto, well, maybe we should look into homeschooling a little bit longer term. And that started us researching homeschooling. And that was really kind of what led us to find homeschooling and what we really wanted to do long term with our kids. So the more that we read about it, the more that we researched it, the more that we looked into like what we need to teach, what we don't need to teach, or like, is there any testing, the legalities of it, the outcomes, like how that all works. It just kind of became more and more apparent to us that this was what we wanted to do with our kids. And this was the type of learning that we wanted our kids to have. We wanted our kids to have this love of learning. We wanted our kids to be able to follow their passions and do the play-based learning ideas that we thought were really good, but have that chance to do it individually when there was only, you know, me and Alexi or me and Zoe. Like, when it's, you know, one adult to 2 kids, you can handle them following 2 totally different tangents and pathways. But when you have one adult to, you know, 15 or 20 kids, it's much harder to actually do like logistically. So that kind of was the start. The more we researched it and the more we like looked into homeschooling, ironically, the more we realized that we actually grew up with parents who kind of did like homeschooling on the weekends. We both came from families where the parents were very involved in our learning, and they were very involved in like doing the extra things. So like I remember doing like lots of crafts and painting and art projects and things like that with my mom, which was a passion of mine for many, many years. Like that was something that I loved to do with my mom. Stefan's parents were really into, like, they are also artists and musicians, but like they like push those passions and they helped their kids develop those passions in different ways. So we kind of grew up in families where kind of the unschooling, homeschooling ideas were there on the weekends and after school, but we still went to public school. So then we had this idea, like, those are the things we remember. And the more we read about homeschooling, the more we looked into homeschooling, the more we realized that what we were doing and that what we loved doing on, you know, the weekends with our parents and after school with our parents could actually be what our kids consider schooling and what will be their learning opportunities growing up. And so all of that combined to lead us down this path of educating our kids at home. So now our kids are home with us. We homeschool full-time. We have no plans to send them to school anytime soon. Probably the earliest that we've ever talked about sending them is possibly in high school, and that is pretty limited. They would have to really convince us that that is what they really want to do at the time. So we're in this for the long haul. We really think this is what is going to be best for our children and that this is what's best for our family. So that is how two teachers ended up homeschooling their children. If you like this video, make sure you click like and that you've subscribed and click the bell for notifications. And if you want to follow us on other social media, we're on Facebook, Instagram, and we're now on TikTok. So make sure you follow us there as well. Thank you so much, and we'll see you guys next week.